Hi, I'm Bogdan. In the last few weeks, you've seen quite a few training videos from me, and now I decided that it's time to take it further and show you how you can customize Action Form with new for functionalities. And there are a few ways to do this, but what I will present today is how you can create new actions, and that is how you can write code, and I'll write C# code to write actions that execute on submit. So they take the input data and they perform some operations on them. And as an example, I was thinking a piece of functionality that is not that great in DNN. For example, you have a module and you can specify tags for it. And then you go into the module settings and you have these tags drop down, but you don't have any tags. You have to create them in advance. And then you have to go into admin taxonomy, and then you have to click edit, and then you have to click add and add one term at a time. So if you have 100 terms, I think you're screwed. So what I will do in this video, I will create a form that lets you bulk create tags. So you don't have to create one by one, you can create them all at once. Okay, so let's get started. Here I have DNN 7.1.1 and I already installed Action Form, and I also have an HTML module on this page. So I'll create a new module, a new project in Visual Studio. So I start from scratch, no template, no nothing, so you get the full picture. So I will create a class library, that's okay, and I will call it, let's say, Action Form that bulk tags. And it doesn't matter where you place it, as long as the assembly, the DLL, ends up in the website bin folder. But I will place it under the website desktop modules. So I'll just take this path here and use it in my project. Okay. So now I have a new project and I need to add references. I need at least 2 references. I need the reference to .NET because it offers me the API to create the tags, and I can take that from the bin folder. So I will link .NET.dll, this one, and I also need Action Form.core, this one, the core one. The other one is for UI only, and this one contains the API. So I'm adding this, okay. And I will also issue some settings to not copy locally, because I'm not interested to have a local copy of this, and it could create also problems because sometimes you link to a version of .NET, and then when you deploy to another version, you don't want to deploy .NET DLL as well, because it will overwrite the existing .NET DLL, and of course, being a different version, it will break. Okay. And now I'll create an action, and I need to implement iAction. And this iAction is an interface from Action Form core. And I will implement this interface. So you will notice two methods. Let me change this to usings for clarity. And this one also. And one more here. Okay, so you have two actions. You have the initialize action, and here you have to keep in mind that action form reuses actions, so you shouldn't make that data persistent that you shouldn't be persistent, like storing handles and stuff like that, because it could be that multiple threads access the same code at the same time, so you don't want to store that. Okay, so on initialization you get a chance to read some settings that I will show you in a bit and perform other initialization tasks. This is called once when the action is after the action is initialized by action form engine. And then execute is called when the form is submitted, when the button or more precisely when the event that is where this action is binded is triggered. So it could be when you submit a form, so it's a click on a button, or it could be an event like validation failed event that triggers this action to execute. Okay, so here you actually get all the form settings and you get all the submitted data. And this context, you don't have to worry about this for now. Okay, so first thing first, let's wire up our action so it appears in action form. So I will say some messages so I know that the exception was thrown by my code. Okay, and now going back to the form, here I already added a submit button, and on submit I have some an event that's called on click, and here I can add a list of action. And currently we have various actions, from running an SQL query or sending an email to collecting a payment with PayPal, performing a redirect, and so on. So what I want to add now is maybe a new action, and I will place it either in one of these categories, or I'll create a new one. Maybe I'll create a new one, call it DNN, and select it here. So first job that I want to have to achieve is to have my action display here. And to do that, you simply have to alter the configuration. So let me go to the disk. So I'm already in the desktop module folder. I'll go into AvatarSoft, action form, and here there's a config folder. In the config folder, basically action form implements an inversion of control where components are loaded and wired dynamically based on the configuration files. So I'll go into the actions folder where the actions are defined, and here there is a defaults. You'll see this is an XML file, and here you'll notice multiple action nodes. So each node represents an action type that has an ID. Basically this is the user login action, and then you get to specify some settings, and in this case group defines where it appears in the menu that I showed earlier, and the type, and this is the class we've implemented. This is the class that actually gets triggered for initialization, for executing the logic behind the action. And this one is a simple action, but if we move to the next one, user registration, you can see it also has parameters. So each parameter has a type. So this is a Boolean parameter which will be displayed as a checkbox, and I will show that immediately. And this basically says when this option is enabled, action form look for the username in the form. So when this is enabled, if there's a username in the form, that will be used. If there's an email, actually, if there's an email in the form, it will be used as username. This one is also a checkbox that will randomly generate a password, and so on. And I will go back to the administration to show you the direct link between these two. So user registration. Okay, so you see email as username, it's a checkbox and so on. And if I were to modify this configuration file, let's say edited, this will update instantly on the admin. So let me go back to admin, I hit refresh, and now if I add another action, you'll see edited. So this configuration is loaded real time. Based on this, action form creates the actions. Okay, so I'll undo this. So basically this file goes on and on and on with all the action, but you shouldn't add your action to this file, because this file will get overwritten on updates, and you don't want your settings to be lost. So this is what the README file here will also explain, that you have to create your own configuration file, and I just copy paste defaults, and I will say bulk tags.config. I think the extension is already there. Yes. So I'm editing this file. I give it an ID. There is no restriction here. Just don't have spaces and make it meaningful. So let's say bulk tags, and here a friendly title. Okay. This action bulk inserts tags into DNN taxonomy. And here, if you specify a group, action form will catch it that it's a group that it doesn't exist, and create it automatically. And here I have to get the type of the class that I'm implementing. Now I used action form that bulk tags. So this will be what I put here as the namespace and as the assembly name. And the class name will be bulk add. Okay. And this is it. I will just delete the rest, and I will come back to create maybe a parameter later. So now I just save this, and action form will know to load all the files that exist in that folder. Of course, this doesn't exist. It will throw an error if I actually try to execute this action. But now it should appear at least in the list of actions. And I usually go to the button. Earlier I went to the button to add an action on click, but I can add as well, for example, add an action on initialization. And I'll just use this because it's faster just to see things. So you see a new folder here, DNN, and a new action build bulk DNN tags. And this happened just because I've added that configuration file with that node, that action definition. Okay, you get these two fields by default. You don't get anything else. You have to create, if you need additional data, you have to create. And in this demo, I'll create a checkbox because it's more useful. And then I will do a drop down where I can select which field contain the tags, because my form could have maybe 20 fields and only one contains the list of tags. The other contain maybe what roles to create, maybe what logo to put on the side, maybe other stuff related to the site setup. So I don't assume that the form will contain only one field that will be the field with the tags. So I can't assume that. I can't assume that. I have to let the administrator select which field to read. What you should do is go through the defaults file and see different types of parameters, because you have plenty of examples here. You don't have to read or invent anything. So in my case, I've already seen that there's a Boolean parameter like this one. So I'll just grab it from here, move to the other file, and you have to place it in the action node. and I'll call this ignore collisions, let's say. And I will say, or I can make it inverse, so instead of saying ignore collisions, I'll say stop if collisions exist, for example. Or maybe here we can put something more descriptive, like stop if some tags already exist. Okay, and here you can provide also help text. I'll not go into that. You can just delete it. You can just delete maybe the whole node. And then the second parameter that is more important, it allows me to select a field. And this one is a more complex parameter. That's why I've chosen it. So you have one simple, and the other one is called field select. And you can actually always go into the admin and look at different actions, see what kind of parameters have. For example, if you look at let's say send mail, you can see these are some text box, and here is a checkbox, and here, oh, it's a rich edit. Okay, so that can be done. Here is a file drop down, and so on. So you actually can see different types of parameters that are supported, and of course we can always add new types of parameters, so we can extend this interface. So here are some text box, and here is a drop down with rows. Okay, I'll go back to the configuration. So I said that I will pick up a field select. I'll pick it from here, put it here. Tags field. And here I say select the field that contains the tags. Okay, and here you get to filter this field, so you don't show all the fields in the form. You only show fields of some type. And this is actually, these types are actually defined in input types folder. It's the same concept with config files. So you see that each has a name. This one is the equivalent of an ID. So each has a name, open text. And in this case, I'm interested maybe in text areas, because I want if I want a bulk edit, I want maybe text area where users can input one tag per line. So this would be open text large. So I just take this ID from here and I put it here to filter it by it. You can just comment it or delete it, and it should probably show all the fields. Okay. So this is it. I'll go back to the administration and refresh the screen. Okay, now it works. I'm opening the button. Oh, I put this here. Okay, I'll just delete it from here. So it's on the submit button. Here I look in DNN, bulk DNN tags, and now you see I have the two parameters. I have the checkbox and I have the tags field, and you see this is empty because there is no text area in my form. But if I were to add some fields, let's add large text, and I will add two more to see how you can choose between them, and I will add a small one. Let's say title something, and I will add one more large one more text area, and I will call this maybe optional description, something like that. Okay, I will just invert this too because it makes more sense. Save. Okay, so now I'll just go back to the front end. You see I have one title and 2 tags fields. And actually now on the submit button, when I have this bulk DNN tags, in the tags field you see I already have the 2 tags and optional description fields, so I can choose one of the text areas. And now I'll go back and try the things I mentioned, so I'll just delete this parameter. And I'll refresh, and let's watch if it will display all the fields. Yes, so now I have all the fields, including this button, the submit button. So it's a good idea to always filter based on what you expect, what your action expects. So for example, if I selected a submit here, your action will be screwed because the submit doesn't contain any tags. Okay, so I'll leave this here. So now we have an action, we have 2 parameters, and what's more important, all the wiring is done of all the serialization. So I have a new action, and I can select the tags field, I can say an option, and what's more important, now I save it, and everything is saved.